It was like this, conditions like this at the start of the race. Were you more cautious, or did you just long until lights out here? But the rain still coming down lightly on
The Aces are once again back in town. Stick a flake in it. Lewis Hamilton has pole number 9 to finish off the season. This afternoon, it's a 3.05-mile track, which is wet at the moment. We've had showers before the race scheduled time. DRS zone, when it becomes available, just the one, and it's been extended this year on the run down to the...
That's because you don't want equipment and people on the grid anywhere near.
So we've been talking strategy all morning. Who's going to do what? Perez starts on a different tyre to Hamilton and Verstappen. Can Hamilton lead this race and back up the pack?
The blue mark tyre, everybody else on the intermediate tyre. About survival the first handful of laps as they just find out where the grip is and the level of the grip. Where are you going to hit the brake pedal? When you turn the steering wheel, is it going to bite and go into the apex? Fifth place on the full wet tyre. Won't do him a lot of good on this part of the track.
Can I have a BBW fail?
A brake-by-wire fail. Now on the inside, joins Hamilton in battle. It is Hamilton and Verstappen. Verstappen and Hamilton wheel to wheel going into the field of the Tamburello chicane. Hamilton is forced wide and he's lost a little bit of bodywork as well. Sergio Perez is in. He, like his teammate, Charles Leclerc, goes wide. And Aqua Minerale, and that's a spinning Williams of Nicholas Latifi going out at Aqua Minerale. Well done. He's kept the engine running and he's not got beached in the gravel. Verstappen leads Hamilton, leads Leclerc going over the grass now. It's his teammate Sainz. Perez is 4th, Ricciardo 5th.
What can you tell us?
Yeah, it is, amazingly. I would have said that a wet tyre start for Gasly and Ocon was actually a good call, but Ocon says it's not wet enough for the full wet, so under the safety car, losing a bit less time, although he'll rejoin the run at the back of the pack.
Yeah. Great reaction, was already pointing towards his teammate Sergio Perez, and then a gap opened up for him on the left-hand side of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, and we now head into the Tamburello chicane, and 2 into 1 does off on the formation lap, rejoins, and in a few hundred metres time, out of the race. You can see Stroll going past, Vettel going past in the Aston Martin. Oh, and that was Nikita Mazepin to go.
No.
If it had gone any further right to stay out of the way of the Williams, he's on the grass himself. In the wet conditions, Hamilton's not going to be as disadvantaged by the damage that he's picked up to that front wing. But when it dries, that's when he's going to start to lose aero performance.
Pit exit is why they've closed pit entry to stop people coming down there. And they can change the whole nose. Takes them normally 12, 15 seconds.
But Max Verstappen's incredible start might have been the fact that he started in 2nd gear. So, yeah, really good traction for him off the line.
Well, we've seen that before as well, haven't we? With cars.
He's got to go around for another lap. Poor Mick Schumacher. Character building, you might say. Both Haas drivers slightly in the wars. But, yeah, hopefully someone's going to retrieve that stray front wing, made, as you say, in Italy, at the Dallara concern, not too far
behind the safety car, if that car in front has an issue, and an issue that is very obvious, and it would be dangerous for you behind him to stay behind him for much longer.
Such like, nothing too critical there, because they'll just be replaced with the new nose.
So, end of this lap, we're going to lose the safety car. We have already lost from this race Nicholas Latifi. We've seen Mick Schumacher hit the wall. We've seen Max Verstappen take the lead off the line from Lewis Hamilton. We've seen Charles Leclerc into the chicane. They came together on the opening lap. This time around, Hamilton is just a little too far back to make the move on Verstappen. He slots there into 2nd place. There's Daniel Ricciardo in 5th, with Pierre Gasly behind him in 6th, Lance Stroll in 7th, and then comes Carlos Sainz 8th for Ferrari at the moment. Out in front, though, Verstappen himself and Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton under pressure from Charles Leclerc behind him, and we get now to the long straight down towards the Tamburello chicane.
Remember back from Monza qualifying course in the past, generally Lance knows how to drive a Formula 1 car in the rain, so the incident involving Verstappen and
as it stands, Lando Norris in 8th place.
Gasly, of course, still on the full wet tyre at this stage. And, yeah, that was very brave driving 3 abreast down the pit straight. Skirmish on the previous lap.
I think skirmish is a very good word for it on a place now. He's starting to get a few more places back through Piratella and down towards Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, and Gasly's tyre choice is not now looking right, is it?
No.
That's why Ocon ditched those quite early, but the two Alpine
Takes the long way round and over the curves at the chicane, and it was a move that was on, but very, very difficult to slow the car down enough to keep on the tarmac. He'll fight that again next time around. No investigation necessary.
Hamilton fastest on the previous lap though, so it's holding it at 5 seconds. Tyre temperatures and therefore pressures just beginning to come up again for the drivers after the safety car period.
Carlos of Lance Stroll on Pierre Gasly.
Up ahead, because there is latent pace in that Mercedes. Here we go.
Gasly can't work on the car when you come into the pits either. It's not something you can take when you do the pit stop. He's got to come in and take that penalty.
So it's confirmation, because the original graphic said stop go. Giovinazzi on the inside at Toza makes the move, and now Yuki Tsunoda, who started last in this race, is now alongside his teammate as well. You'd think that AlphaTauri would come just ahead of Fernando Alonso. Alonso starting to gain on his teammate. I suppose it's all as well, Martin, about trying to get as much temperature into the tyres as you possibly can. He might have been struggling at the start, but now we've Gasly.
Yeah, it looks like Carlos needs a bit of rear brake bias tuned in, doesn't it? He keeps locking the front, as he did down into Rivazza as well.
At the moment, Carlos Sainz is some half a minute behind his teammate Schatz, and that's McLaren battle, Ricciardo and Norris. I think that's going to go on all race long.
Just keep an eye on if people start to pit for slicks.
Second penalty to add it on to his pit stop and not a stop and go. And then, as you say, the two McLarens squabbling over 5th and 6th.
Right, touch plate, as they call it. Looks very nice. Works, gives him a little bit of downforce, but if you knock it off, it doesn't matter so much. So he's all good.
Was that the latest in the long line of driver messages that, essentially, Martin, I'd like to get
plate? And now Lando needs to show what he can do, and I'm sure if he doesn't scamper off into the distance, they'll swap them back again.
Well, just looking at the times, there's about 7.5 seconds, no, 6.5.
And the track is obviously much wetter, and you'll be straight in the head.
Well, that marvellous before he's starting to slide.
So Lando, we don't want to be the first car onto dries. We want to eke out this into tyre.
Because they've run the intermediates, or in Pierre Gasly's case, the wet weather tyres at the start of this race, and Gasly down in 18th place after what was the wrong decision to run the wet weather tyres. We've lost Nicholas Latifi from this race. 19 are still running. Verstappen leads by 5 seconds from Hamilton, who's carrying damage to the left-hand side.
Onto the radio and say, come on, Valtteri. So I think they're getting a bit desperate down there.
Well, Lance Stroll, as he showed in the opening stages of the Turkish Grand Prix last year, is a decent competitor in the wet. To lose
6 World Championships between them, and 14th Vettel and 16th Alonso. So I do see, yes, it is. It's the slicks at Aston Martin. No action for Alonso at
severe penalty than the one that's going to affect Sergio Perez. With 5 minutes to go before the start of the race, the wheels need to be fitted. They weren't, and that's why he's got a stop-go penalty. So he'll come in, Martin, stop for 10 seconds, and then climb is over the ridge and towards Piratella at the top of the hill. Aston Martin ahead of the Mercedes. Bottas desperate to get past.
Yeah, so it's stuck as a stop.
Had to be done, but they need to do it quicker to escape any attention from the stewards. Thank you very much to Mark Hughes, who says Zolder 1981. Dave Luckett was the Arrows mechanic.
That was an awful, I remember.
Anyway, to the pits, because he's got that stop-go penalty that he must take within 2 or 3 laps. Here he goes for his penalty for not having his tyres fitted at the wheels fitted at the 5-minute signal.
How Lewis ended up with slicks at the end of the race, didn't he? He'd taken all the tread off the intermediate and was getting along very nicely indeed.
And it's now 2.5 seconds, Lewis Hamilton to Max Verstappen. There is still the best tyre to be on.
So we're getting towards the pit stop.
This is the sort of conditions Hamilton has shown in the past where he and his car really can excel in, and that gap now is under 2 seconds. It was 5. Ted, to you.
But that was as the number 22 Yuki Tsunoda comes into the...
It's going to blink first.
Max, thoughts on conditions?
Yeah, well, if the slicks are not better, then what do you want me to do? It's getting very dry, that's for sure, but one line.
And he does not. He does pit.
And sets the best first sector time that we've seen so far in this race. Now, he's not behind Verstappen. He's been let loose for one lap to see if that overcut works.
It's a scrum set of medium tyres. I'm not sure that was a bit slower than it should have been.
It was 4 seconds, Martin.
Yeah, the right front seemed to be a while going on, and that's released. Yeah, the right front was a while coming off, wasn't it? And that's given Verstappen track position and, of course, a lap of knowledge of where he can find some grip on these dry tyres.
Right, so we can get to Max Verstappen.
Yeah, Verstappen is just coming up now to lap that little pack that is Mick Schumacher, Valtteri Bottas. Who else is in there? Sebastian Vettel, I think, is in there as well.
Yeah.
There
so
it is.
They're
10, as Valtteri Bottas gets lapped by Max Verstappen.
That's going to hurt, isn't it? Valtteri Bottas on lap 31, getting lapped by the race leader. Now tries to pick up a slipstream. His teammate Lewis Hamilton trying to do the same as well. 1.8 seconds the gap, and Hamilton's still got a lot.
As are so wide, the exact opposite to a London taxi, for example.
So,
and Lewis's pace had been sensational on the previous lap.
So whilst Verstappen carries out on in front, extending his advantage.
Somebody's dropped it in the braking zone coming down the hill by the looks of it, because the brake marker boards have all caught up in the accident. So it looks as if somebody, we think George was trying to overtake him on the grass and lost it. You're never that popular with the stewards if you spin your car when there are double waved yellow flags out, as Fernando just did.
Right, so the one person that has been helped is Lewis Hamilton, who was limping back to the pits anyway.
For what?
Right, well, both drivers quite clearly blaming each other. I think Valtteri might be a little bit winded by that.
Absolutely top speed there, 295 kilometres per hour. What's that, 180 odd miles per hour here as well,
Look
for
at the
good
damage
measure.
to the arm coat.
Yeah, we've got to check the barriers out, clear the debris away and all of the pieces of carbon, otherwise people are going to be picking up punctures left, right and centre. But you know what, Lewis Hamilton was running fourth. I believe he was still running fourth on the road in all of that.
Not going to see much from that angle.
Oh, it's a wonder they didn't collect the other two cars as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On board with George Russell.
Well, we need.
George did get spooked, and it's 190 miles an hour. You can understand it. If someone just slightly veers out to the right, then that sets off the chain. Either way, Lewis Hamilton with a lot to think about himself. Race. Luckily, if you're a Sky Q customer, you can use the recap facility, and you can go back and look at quite a lot of action so far. This man, Yuki Tsunoda, has been involved in a fair few overtakes himself, starting 19th on the grid.
Verstappen, talking to Christian Horner on the Red Bull pit wall. Sergio Perez, Verstappen's teammate, has been up here to sort of explain to Adrian Newey exactly what was going on. And now the engineers are going down to look at the car. I'm sure they can change that anything
to it. That's a fair overtake.
Just a slight will make his way from where he was within that pit lane to go to the front, and the rest will then follow. It's a tough ask, but the more he can salvage today, the better off it might be later on in the season.
Yeah, he's a long way ahead of the pack there as Lewis, but they'll come in to the pit lane to join at the back, as you predicted, Crofty. With the relatives,
Michael Massey would have thought, look, it's dry enough for.
Yeah, it does. It would be a bit treacherous down there, I must admit, but no more than you would say normally get on a bit of a damp start on any other given day at a Grand Prix. Battery.
Oh, Max Verstappen, what's happened there? Just trying to light up his tyres somewhat on the entry into Ravazza. And a trip to the grass that wasn't part of the playbook. So,
ooh, that was a lucky one. Isn't he in second place there?
Isn't he just? Verstappen then ahead of Norris. Hamilton has managed to get past Kimi Räikkönen and is up into 8th place. Gap to Verstappen, 5 seconds. It was a lap It was a good move to make for McLaren in terms of the restart. What he's got to try and do is hold on to those tyres until the end of this race. The medium compound runners will go towards the to the end of the race and will easily get to the checkered flag. Will the softs be able to make it? That's entirely up to Lando Norris and his bit on the Spaniard. The man who goes by, he loses more ground to Max Verstappen out in front, but for Hamilton, limiting damage here to try and get, if he can, to round about 6th place, maybe 5th, if he's on a proper charge. Would that be? And he has tumbled all the way down to 14th place. Poor afternoon for Sergio Perez. It continues to get worse. This is what happened.
He just got a little bit wide. Left rear tyre dipped on. Now get off down the road towards Daniel Ricciardo.
You can argue there that the DRS did exactly what it's designed to do, enable the car behind to arrive into the corner, into the braking zone, alongside the car ahead.
And then the driver's got to finish it off himself.
That's exactly what DRS is meant to do, and sometimes it works, and that won't help his progress much at all, as he finds himself now down in 14th.
Hamilton then on the charge.
He has halved the deficit between himself and Daniel Ricciardo in the space of one lap, as into the pits now comes Antonio Giovinazzi.
We have a problem on the brakes. We try to fix in pit stop position.
An adjustment made to the brakes. Picture, except Valtteri Bottas, who didn't look best pleased because he sat in the garage and not out on the racetrack.
You can see how easy it would be to throw the car off the road where the track's a little bit more damp, but with that kind of pace and overtaking under DRS, Lewis, it might still end up Verstappen versus
cars powered by AWS. A striking distance in 4 laps between Hamilton and Sainz, just 4/10 taken out of Sainz's advantage by Hamilton on that previous lap. And if the top 3 can stay the top 3 to the checkered flag here, we would have the youngest podium average age in Formula One history. The time deleted for track limits. You don't want to do it again, because then you start to get black and white flags, and it could really start to cost you. On board with Perez, we can see Sebastian Vettel dipping another rear right tyre into the gravel. Perez was running in the top 4 at the restart, down to 13th, but he's going to try and get past Vettel here. Not quite. Into the chicane they go. Vettel still like to bring that under a second to get the advantage then of DRS. By the way, Pierre Gasly got ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. Ted was talking about Raikkonen. He was in the top 8, but no, Gasly, who was on the wrong tyres at the start of this race and went backwards faster than he was going forwards, he's starting to move back up the timing charts once again.
But and they actually rubbed tyres, look.
Yeah. A thorough examination given.
Lewis hasn't really closed into the back of the Ferraris quite as quickly as I thought he would.
No, Perez has finally got past Sebastian Vettel. 12th place is now his. So let's look at this battle here. Lando Norris, whose highest finish in a Grand Prix is 3rd. Charles Leclerc, race winner, and took... I wonder, though, if that lap he might have used just a bit more of the energy recovery system. Lewis Hamilton, might he need a couple of laps just to recharge the battery? It looks like it did too.
Yeah, so to explain what I was talking about, so of course, because Leclerc's quite close to the back of Lando Norris, he's also getting the DRS there. It won't be such an easy move for Lewis, accepting...
Getting quite a few vibrations, I don't know what from.
Totally take back the last Ferrari podium finish. And of course, Sebastian Vettel was on the podium in Turkey, wasn't he? And that great squabble right at the end of that race as well.
Fine, they just want to stay ahead of the Ferrari.
Yuki Tsunoda ahead of the former Ferrari driver Sebastian Vettel, up into 13th. Other than that, places remaining pretty much as they are, but you expect that at Imola. Max Verstappen, who's not hugely far behind Kimi Raikkonen either. Either two of those 4 drivers could end up in the points. Now, the Ferrari has been impressive through the slower speed corners here at Imola this weekend. So slower speed corners we're getting to now. Rivazza 1 and Rivazza 2. There's not much
flags, but once again then, look at that. You have to say, Leclerc looks a little bit more than a second behind now, doesn't he?
He does. And I think, you know, without DRS for Leclerc, that obviously will help Lewis Hamilton. Let's see as we get to the line who's got the DRS this straight.
If Lando Norris is going to get past, if he's going to get passed by the Ferrari, which by the Mercedes of Hamilton, it's highly likely. What you've got to make sure he does is not lose too much time in it. It's a tough call for him now. He's a racer, he'll fight for everything.
Looks like he's losing the time to Hamilton. Of course, it's the constructors' fight that McLaren are going to have, or expecting to have, with Ferrari. That's why they want to keep the Ferraris behind them, especially, and they're expecting, kind of constructors-wise, Mercedes to be ahead of them towards the end of the
Piratella, and he got his lap time deleted, could have qualified third, but has put up a very good race here today, and that's a bumpy old ride for Gasly. And he's lost places as a result of that. No, 8th place for Pierre Gasly still.
Ambition well ahead of adhesion there.
Just a touch. Right, what's Hamilton's ambition? See how the gap closes to about 0.3 of a second when they get to the chicane, and by the time they start this straight, because it's so far, fingers crossed, from a British perspective, and that Lando Norris manages to help, talking him over the bumps, skipping lightly over the bumps, Max Verstappen, who's never led the World Championship during his Formula One career. Well, today he has got the chance to draw level with Lewis Hamilton.
And the car has looked brilliant to drive as well. Yellow flag in sector 2.
So
see Mazepin is around that area.
Yeah, someone's had a bit of a moment. I think.
See him dropping back on the driver tracker.
comes in front of me, and Lance Stroll dealing with that gearbox problem. I don't know whether he feels he could overtake Ricciardo, but those soft tyres starting to go off on Ricciardo's McLaren as well. Gasly feels he has extra pace if only he'd get past Stroll and Ricciardo, but he can't.
But he can't at the moment, and Stroll hanging on to that 7th place, which I think will...
He made hard work of it today, but I feel ended up where he really should have.
4th and a 5th place as well for Leclerc and Sainz.
Okay, much incredible hard driving, but Lando Norris, got to say, I was just going to say driver of the day.
Well, he's the man that should have been P3 in qualifying had he not had his lap time. Brilliant conditions to watch the Grand Prix today, as you say. Damp track that starts